Welcome, listeners, to the latest British Eventing show on the EquiRatings Eventing podcast. The season is in full swing. And before we dive in to the second half of today's show, I am delighted to say back with us, CEO of British Eventing, Rosie Williams. Rosie, we last spoke to you at the beginning of the year. We found out a little bit more about you kind of taking over the role. How are you? And how have the last couple of months been?
I'm great. Hello, Nicole. Nice to see you again. Great. This is a tough job, but it's a challenging job, and I've been made feel really welcome since we spoke. We've had some really good stuff happen. We've had a stakeholder review group. We've had a great day, a couple of days with all the officials. We've got everybody together. We've launched our Here to Help campaign, which is trying to bridge the gap. We've had some pretty rubbish weather, but that's okay. The abandonment fund's kicked in and it's now working, so none of us can control the weather, but there's some really good stuff going on.
You mean to say, Rosie, you cannot control the weather? What are you doing? Come on. You've got to have an off switch somewhere. Surely the powers that be must. I mean, it is so difficult. We'll talk about it in more detail because I think, one thing, we'd all be very, very, very wealthy if we could control the weather. I want to touch upon first the Here to Help campaign. Because that's something that has been launched in conjunction with Sport England. And I think we touched upon it quite a lot in the last British Eventing show we did about kind of the introduction to BE, and if you've been thinking about doing it for a little while, actually making that jump. So just tell us a little bit more about that, first of all.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Because it's based on it's based on a little bit of anecdote, but sometimes you have to try things and be innovative. We were really lucky that Sport England and the BEF have helped us with some funding. We're trying to change the way that people see that big leap between getting a horse and deciding to event, or coming from unregulated or however, or coming from pony club into riding club into what is seen to be the big BE thing. So we've started to really take some notice of the journey that people are on. We've done a bunch of different training with some grassroots coaches that are going to be out on the ground. Our officials and me and a bunch of other people are going to be out and making sure that we're really changing that view from, instead of holding people to account to the rules, we're going to help them to be compliant with the rules. And I think that's quite a switch. And it's a switch for any sport to move away from forcing people to be compliant to helping them. And it's not just about this campaign. We're going to be doing some really deep work across, using EquiRatings guys and a bunch of other things over the year about how we can help people, how British Eventing can help people to compete in eventing. Now, whether that's changing the way we speak about the dangers and the challenges, to using really good science and data, and to be able to prove a different story, so that it's going to be a lot deeper than some T-shirts and stuff to make people feel better on the ground. And it's principally about the first part of it is about, if somebody comes to a BE event, then you need to know that somebody's there to actually help you, whether it's hold your horse while you go to the loo or go on a course walk with you. It doesn't really matter. Those people are there and they're very happy to just give you a hand to get over whatever bump it is that you've got in front of you on the day. The other thing that we've put in place is a feedback campaign. So we've got QR codes that are it's the same QR code at every single event. We want to hear from people, from members and riders and things like that, what they're experiencing. And it's hit the ground running. Poplar Park, for example, which was the first event of the year, I went and had the QR code in my hand and we put it up everywhere, and it's really great. Well, we had 100 people come back to us and feedback. The vast majority of that feedback is incredibly positive, but there are some parts where actually we just need to be better at stuff, whether it's communication prior to the event, or whether, I don't know, silly things like the burgers or there was no coffee or whatever. We're trying to take a really positive approach to helping organisers, riders, fans have a better time while they're experiencing eventing. And if I can just ask one thing of the members, when you see the QR code, go up, scan it. It takes you 5 seconds to tell us the answers to the questions. It all goes into a big bucket of anonymous data, and we don't know who's feeding back, but we will be working with everybody to try and make sure that we pick up on some of the feedback that's coming through.
That's so important, though, because, and I think we've touched upon it previously on this show over the last couple of years. There's such a culture, and I think it's in life these days, whereby if somebody doesn't like something, the first thing they do is put it on social media. But actually, that doesn't actually solve anything. You don't get any kind of constructive review of it necessarily, and it just kind of escalates, and then it unfortunately doesn't really have any impact. Sometimes it might, but not generally. I think actually having an opportunity to give constructive feedback, whether that be really positive, and I know there has been some really, really positive feedback. And it's always important to tell somebody when they've done something well, because one, they've worked really, really hard, but also they know that has worked and they can do it again and build on it for the future. But also if things aren't right, people want to know about it, because everybody wants their event to be as good as it possibly can be. Actually,
negative social media posts don't go anywhere. And if people think that that action is going to be taken on a negative social media post that is done by an individual, you just can't run an organisation based on individual opinion. However, when we start to see patterns and we see things that people are embedding their feedback and happy to give it, then that's when we can make real change. And as you said, you're absolutely right. The organisers and the volunteers and the people that are out there want to make these events work. So more constructive help and our members and the fans and people that go along is going to help us to actually identify some of the weaknesses and change them. That's all we want to do.
And it's very easy, organisers, when they are in the thick of an event, there is so much going on. There are so many balls for them to juggle that actually they're not going to the coffee van to get a coffee. Because they've got 500 other things to be doing. So unless actually somebody has a constructive point about something, that they're not going to hear about it necessarily. It's really important as well, Rosie, to touch upon that isn't just for riders, is it? That stakeholder feedback.
Yeah, so there's a part when you go and click on the QR code, it says, what role are you today? And the role is, if first thing it asks is, what's the weather like? Because it's quite warm. and if you say you're a rider, if you say it's your rider, it takes you down one route of feedback. So it's, what's the going like? How did you find the officials? Things like that. And if it's, I'm not a rider today, it takes you into a different thing. So how far did you travel? Are the services right? What do you think of the event as a whole? All those sorts of things, so that we can really work and make sure that the events are accessible and good fun for everybody that's there, because it's not just about the riders. Putting on an event like a British eventing event is far more detailed than the ground. Whereas people focus very much on the ground, and that, don't get me wrong, that's important. The cross-country course on the ground is really important. However, if we really want people to come and watch and be involved and volunteer and all those sorts of things, we've got to get our head out of the sand a little bit and start to think about what's the user experience when people turn up. I went to Poplar Park and it was amazing. So there was heaps of people there. They were wandering around. The one part that was really, 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 really muddy was where all the burger vans and the coffee was. Now, they couldn't do anything about that, but they were doing everything they could to try and fix that little environment for everybody that was standing around in the mud. But everybody had their wellies on. That's part of outdoor sport. You're going to wear your wellies. Don't go anywhere without your wellies. I thought that was a known fact in the UK.
Especially at the beginning of March, what with the weather we have had, you'd be mad not to go somewhere without more than one pair of wellies, to be honest. Let's talk about the season so far. So we're recording this towards the end of March. It won't actually go out for another week or so, listeners, beginning of April. So there's a couple of big events still to come, notably Thorsby, which we're all doing praying to the weather gods. But we can't control the weather. We've had a bit of a mixed bag. We've had some great ground, start of the season, first weekend of the season, actually, the ground held up pretty well. But we've had others like Cirencester Park, Epworth, where unfortunately the weather has got the better of the event. So just talk us through that process, because there has been a big conversation about not abandoning on a forecast. We all know that the forecast can be wholly unreliable, quite frankly. So just tell us a little bit about that and how that's working?
So I think just a couple of things. It's not, abandoning an event is never taken lightly, right? We none of us want any events to not go ahead. And it's not only about the weather. It's not only has it rained in the last 48 hours. It's where the water tables are. It's, is there a river close? Is it, is the transport system okay? Is it safe for people to bring in and, all that sort of stuff. And the primary position that we will be taking is safety. And the biggest thing that we have to know is that the emergency vehicles can get around the site. That is the most important thing. And, I have had some riders tell me that the ground and the going is the most important thing. But I think they only sort of thinking that as long as they're on the top of the horse. If something goes wrong, we must be able to get to someone quickly. So that's the key bit. The next part is the going and the cross country and the going and the jumping parts and all that sort of stuff, which is the second bit. And then the third part is the safety for the fans and getting vehicles in and out and things like that. So the TAs and the stewards, work really hard with the organisers, constant conversations that are going on with the TA, the steward, the organiser, Debs and the team in the office, me. We're going, okay, well, can we find an alternative? Can we do that? How long can we hold on? We are, I would say, and people like Adrian Ditchin and Debbie and I are on the phone constantly to try and work out how long we can wait, how long we can give our organisers and the ground time at the moment to dry out, what the organisers and stuff are doing. I mean, Epworth, for example, they had 3 pumps going for a week and a half, full time, like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to pump the water off the ground. Now, they didn't win the battle, but my God, did they try hard. And the constant conversations that happened was, and by the end of it, we had photos where there was still standing water on the ground of, 2 feet deep. So you can't do that. The abandonment fund is another part of this because we're trying to make sure that we have people get in and enter and really commit to the events. And then we're doing our best with the team to try and keep the events running. And then if we can't, we're trying to either do great things like when Cirencester went down, Rachel from Tweedledum jumped in and she's got 450 entries and there's 450 combinations that weren't going to get a run because Cirencester had to abandon that are now running again at Tweedledum. I mean, the turnaround time in that is incredible. We're trying to move events a little bit. There are some complications with that, different dates, different things like that. So, we're probably having 5 or 6 telephone conversations a day about the weekend and how we can get things going. Nobody takes it lightly. One of the key things we are trying to do is try and make sure that the members have got enough time to change their plans. Interestingly, I think it was the last day at Osby that we had to drop. 50 people didn't have mobile phones on their entry fees, on their entry forms. So 50 people didn't get the text message that says Sundays had to be abandoned. And the amount of people that we had complaining, well, nobody told me. It's like, well, sometimes you have to take responsibility for yourself. How are we supposed to tell you? If you don't put your mobile phone in your entry, then we have no way of contacting you. Not our fault.
So for anybody listening to this, just on that note, as to kind of making sure that they are going to get the most up-to-date communication, everything else, they need to make sure that when they do their entries, all of their mobile numbers, etc., are up to date. And if they are planning to travel, check social media, check updates.
Yeah. I mean, we are getting updates out as soon as possible, and they go out directly from the office to the mobile phone that we have. You get a text message saying, don't come, or that's now been abandoned, or this is the plan. But if we don't have your number and, it is a little bit of self-responsibility sometimes.
It's so we're all so reliant on our phones, aren't we, that actually it seems completely mad that something as simple as that isn't up to date. So there you go, listeners. Just check your entries. Make sure your mobile phone is up to date. Simple thing. You'll kick yourself afterwards if you don't. For anybody who missed our conversation about the abandonment fund on the last one or just wants a refresher on how it works, just give us a quick overview of it because that's new for this year. It's been brought in sort of replace and sometimes running alongside the insurance that events can have. So just how does that work? What are the financials of it and how quickly does it implement?
So it's actually quite complicated. It's not complicated, it's just complex. Basically what we're doing is British Eventing have put a contribution into the pot of 75 grand to start off. Now through the year, through the entry system, we're collecting a percentage from entries and a percentage from organisers. That's all going into a pot. Bang. We know, and we've modelled, that early on the pot is going to get bashed, which it is. It's getting done. But through the year, the risk is, and this is a risk, the risk is that we hopefully will not have a very wet year the whole year through. But, some of the events, we will build up the pot as it goes through, but we will be paying out early because science and climate change and the weather forecast and stuff is telling us that that's going to happen. So far, it's been really working. We've had abandonments. We are getting refunds back to people within 48 hours. So that turnaround time is amazing. The team in the office are absolutely incredible, and people are getting their money back into their banks in 48 hours. So it's a 60% refund. Now, a couple of the organisers have topped up that refund, but it's a 60% of your entry fee, which is 60% more than was last year and before. And I think it's probably about 3 months quicker than some of the ones that happened last year and that's not a criticism of last year, that's because organisers couldn't pay out the refund until they had negotiated with the insurers. And as we all know, negotiating with insurers is really tough. So, look, I mean, the team are amazing. We go, right, it's abandoned, we've made the decision, bang. Then the team in the office, led by Alison and Sarah, they go bang, 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 bang in the back end of the system, and hopefully all the money gets back in people's bank account. Now, the reason that that's so important is, one, we want to make sure that the viability is there, but two, we really need and want people to commit to entering, because there's a lot of people holding off going, no, I don't think I'll enter yet because I might lose my money and it might rain and stuff. Well, we need you to commit, because organisers, the other side of this is organisers can't have viable events when, they're bound by contracts. Say most greenfield sites particularly have a 7-day contracting period. So 7 days before the event starts, they are then responsible for 100% of the costs, no matter what happens. So if they don't have solid entries and they're not confident that their entries are going to be there, and then that the abandonment fund's going to kick in and help them out if it does go wrong, then it's really difficult to ask people to take the risk to run the event. So it's a circle and a roundabout, but hopefully with the abandonment fund, everybody wins a bit rather than one group losing a lot and the other group gaining a bit, if that makes sense.
There is no perfect answer, is there? There's no sort of, 100% refund immediately, but actually the organisers will magically find some money to pay their contractors, or that, funnily enough, maybe their contractors don't want paying. Well, do you know what? We all run businesses. We all have jobs. They've got people that they need to pay. They've got expenses that they've cost. Marquee's mine to already be up. The work's pretty much already done. Like, you have to consider so many different options. And actually, it is making it as fair as it possibly can be for everybody. One thing that has cropped up over the last couple of days, and that particularly over the last couple of weeks, I guess, is the news that there's going to be some really notable omissions from the calendar in the future. So first of all, very sad news that the Festival of British Eventing at Gatcombe Park won't be running this year due to the economic climate, which again is a challenging one, but also Blair Castle, Chilham Castle as well. Both of those events, actually, the landowners having a different approach to their farming and actually not making their homes and land available to run the events, which we are so grateful that we've had the opportunity. And I think sometimes it's easy to forget that actually we are there by the generosity and the hospitality of people who are so willing to have this huge event on their land.
Yeah, and look, I mean, Blair Castles is really interesting. It's a really interesting issue. The trustees and the owners have decided and are pushing their business model into regenerative farming. Now, Blair is a huge event. It's an enormous event. And, as much as we don't think it, when we all walk away, the ground is a mess. and it takes months to recover the grass and the ground and the waterways and all those sorts of things. So you have to respect the landowners' direction that they want to take with their land. That's just it. It's sad. It's very sad. Blair, Chilham is the same. Chilham have new owners, and we're going to have a conversation with the owners to see if we can help them see where a place for horse trials at Chilham will be. But it is their land. When it comes to Gatcombe, the Gatcombe issue was twofold. One, the abandonment from last year, the insurance has just gone through the roof. And as much as people that own big tracts of land, we all think that they have never-ending buckets of money to put into things, you have to have a viable business. There isn't a farm now that can just not have a viable business. So, yeah, it's tough, but I've been working with already a Greenfield Sites group. We've got 3 different groups going on to talk about the costs and the differences in running different types of events on Greenfield sites to the equestrian centre type model. I'm going to Somerford and I'm going to Richmond to talk to them and just see if we can work out how we can get horse trials and eventing into their business model. But we've got to respect their own opinions.
I was going to ask about that because actually then there sort of gaps appear in the calendar. Blair is obviously running in 2024, which means that, all systems go for this year. It's going to be brilliant. I'm sure all the supporters are going to get behind it. It's going to be absolutely brilliant. But what will be the plan in terms of working to make sure that the calendar can still provide all of the necessary qualifications and the right pathway to whatever big event people might be working towards?
I'll tell you what, if I had a magic wand, the fixtures look, it's really, really complicated. And because we have so many different types of members with so many different types of aspiration, you've got the riders who are pros and want to go to the Olympics and badminton and Burley and stuff. You've got a single amateur rider that wants to go to the grassroots championship at badminton. But you've also got somebody who just wants to poodle about and go around 80 centimetres 20 times a year. So that's the complication. So we're going to be doing a fixtures review. We've got to really get to the bottom of how the calendar is built, who the calendar is built for, and that will go from the time that we start the season in the year to where we allocate events early on that we know, like this period of time, we know events don't quite probably have the ground to hold up in wet weather. So we've got to look at all that sort of detailed stuff. For my sins, I'm going to chair that just to try and make sure that the momentum keeps going on it. But we will be coming out to the membership and asking for stakeholder guidance. We've got some really great groups working already. We've got the organisers group, we've got Rider Focus Group, we've got the International Riders Group, who I speak to really regularly now, and we've got an owners group as well. So I think it's a bit like the abandonment fund. We've got to make sure that we get things right for the majority, and that includes hosts of events and things like that to make viability happen. So it's a big, big chunk of work. And I'm not sure that any sport really gets their calendar right. There's always some clashes, and that's because there's 52 weekends in the year and only 28 of them are in the summer, or 23 of them are in the summer. So we're trying to pile lots of stuff into a very short period of time.
And as we have said before, you can't make everybody 100% happy all of the time. It would be great if we could all be, delighted with everything all of the time. But in reality, that's not life. There are always going to be some people that prefer something and other people that prefer something else, because that's just where their priorities lie. And ultimately, it's about making something that is as fair as possible for as many people as possible.
And the thing is that it never takes into consideration what somebody can do this week. Or is their horse lame or not? All that sort of stuff.
I mean, Rosie, really, we should be able to take into account whether the horse is lame, what the weather's doing, when their brother's getting married, what it's like.
When skiing's on, all of that.
We say that tongue in cheek. It is a really, really important point because actually, everybody is working tirelessly to be able to find the best possible solution. That's not going to happen overnight. The important thing is actually that everybody works together, because when people do work together, as we've seen with Tweezledown and, putting on an event at 5 days' notice, amazing things can happen. And there are so many things to love about our sport and the people in it that actually, if we all work together, fingers crossed, it's all going to be pushing collectively in the right direction. Rosie, it has been a fairly full-on few months to 2024. Thank you for giving us an update. Thank you for giving us a really candid insight into everything that's going on. So coming out of this conversation, a couple of actions for you listeners. One, make sure your mobile phones are up to date on your entries, because it's really simple and actually you'd feel really silly afterwards if they weren't. Two, please give the stakeholder feedback. We will include, I think we should be able to include the link in the show notes to this show. The QR code will be available at all the different events. That's every single event that is a British eventing event. You can get involved. You can give your feedback, whether you're a volunteer, whether you're an organizer of another event that you've just gone to go and watch, a spectator, if you're an owner, a rider, a groom, whatever it may be. This is your chance to have your say in a really, really constructive way. So please take advantage of it. And then the other thing I was just going to say is actually coming up over the next couple of weeks, obviously all systems go towards badminton, and the British Eventing Support Trust have got a couple of events on. Nicola Wilson is doing coffee and a catch up on the Friday at badminton. And there is also a course walk with Tina Cook on the Thursday as well. So if you'd like to find out anything more about those events, if you want to get booked on, it's all going to a very, very, very good cause, then please go and visit the British Eventing Support Trust website or go to their Instagram, Facebook, wherever it may be, you can get your tickets there. Rosie, thank you very much. Best of luck over the next few months. We'll look forward to catching up with you again. Fingers crossed the rain stops. We will all be doing our sunshine dances. That is all we can do. But thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks. And we also have a little stand at badminton as well under the scoreboard. So if anybody wants to come past and have a chat and talk to me, talk to the team, find out anything that you need to know, then we will be there all the way through the grassroots event, all the way through to the main event.
Amazing. There you go, listeners. Go and visit them at badminton as well. Rosie, thank you. And on with the show.
So on the second half of this show, we are going to be talking about something that I'm sure many of you have seen pop up on your screens recently. That is, of course, the Cobbs Can Go eventing programme on Horse and Country TV. And who better to talk all about it than the man who is presenting it, Simon Grieve. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure. It's good to see you.
It's great to have a chat about this because it's been something that's been in the works for a little while. But take us back to the start, because we've seen about this time last year at badminton, the Cobbs Can hashtag come out. Where did this Cobbs Can campaign come from? So,
I mean, it's always been a little bit in the background, especially more at grassroots level, I suppose. And Morven Ritchie, who went around badminton last year on her Cobbs, she actually made she did really well, and there was a video that came out online that went pretty viral, and her horse is absolutely amazing, and I think that's basically where it came from, to be honest. Mikey, I think, is what he was called. He looked awesome going around badminton, didn't he? Yeah, just really. He's obviously, like, well, not obviously, but during this program, I got to know him quite well, and he's a lovely, lovely horse, and he kind of captured the kind of hearts of a lot of people. So it's been really good, actually. Now, we know Cobbs are just such wonderful characters and creatures, but what makes them great event horses? Because they can be underestimated in eventing, actually, can't they? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I rode a horse that was very, very Cobb-like, and he went to a very high level. He did badminton at Burley numerous times, and he was just a phenomenal character and a phenomenal person. That was kind of what made him so special. And he also, as a lot of Cobbs do, he had an incredible brain. He was very good at working things out. He was very good at working as a team with me, and he also had a very good jumping technique. And actually, he was very, very good in front, especially. And a lot of Cobbs are. It seems to be an ongoing theme with Cobbs, I think. And actually, there can be a bit of a perception that they're a little bit slow and lazy. But I spoke to Maureen last year, and she showed me a video going out the start box. Mikey's like rearing up, raring to go. They're definitely not slow, are they? Oh, yeah, there's definitely a misconception that Cobbs are like donkeys. I mean, you can get the odd Cobb that is, but, you know, they have lots of zest for it. And, certainly my one, he had a lot of energy. And although we were always quite slow going around the big events, but I think that was more me than him, to be honest.
So the Cobs Can Go Eventing program that has been released, it's something that I know many of us have been really looking forward to. Give us a little bit of a taster of what we can expect from this series when we tune in.
So we went and filmed in Scotland. We went up there to Bognor Equestrian Centre, which is an absolutely amazing place. New equestrian centre up north. They've got a phenomenal indoor arena. It was only opened this winter, and it was great to be there. We could have a little bit look around, see what the place was like, but also then there's a big stable block, and we could speak to people that were sponsoring the program as well. EquiRatings sponsored the whole thing, which was great, and we could have a look around the whole facility, and it was great for filming because we could do everything there. We met Morven and her cob Mikey, and then we also had Josie Smith as well, who was there with her cob, who did Bramham last year. And we basically had Sarah Holden there as well as coach, and she came up with some exercises to do for dressage, show jumping, cross country, and we also did some mini kind of bite-sized programs where we can learn things about booting, feeding, nutrition, all that kind of stuff, all into kind of one. And it's on Horse and Country TV. You can watch it on demand on HSC Plus, and hopefully it's jam packed full of information for people to learn about. Well, not just about cobs; it's also just eventing in general.
Because it's an 8-part series, so there's nice chunks, like you say, for people to watch. What types of things are covered within those 8 parts? Because you mentioned there that there's a bit of dressage, show jumping, and also care as well. Are they separated into just a dressage video, show jumping video?
Yeah, so basically there's a dressage video. Exactly, I can't remember exactly what we've got, but we've definitely got a dressage video, we've got a show jumping video, we've got a cross country video, we've got a video on nutrition, on feeding with Bailey's, and then we've got booting, so looking after the horse's legs, and there's another kind of program where we talk about fitness. So there's loads of stuff there, and it's all in one place. So you can go, and they're quite short programs, so it doesn't take long to watch, and it's jam packed, full of information. So hopefully, it's easy to use.
We absolutely love that. That sounds amazing. But not only did we have these fantastic riders, like you mentioned, Maureen there, who's part of the series. Is it true that you rode a cob whilst you were there?
I did. I rode Thor. He was a Scottish local up there, and he was lovely, really good fun. But they always are. I love riding cobs. They're great fun. I've not met a bad one yet.
They always put a smile on your face, no matter what's happening in your day.
Yeah, definitely.
And we talk about how we want our sport, obviously, to be inclusive in many, many ways. But we also want that inclusivity to come as well in horse breeds. And I think this is where this is so fantastic, letting people know that cobs are fit for eventing. Do you think that we're going to see more cobs, hopefully, from this series come through in grassroots eventing?
Well, I hope so. That's kind of the aim of it, is to really encourage people to go eventing, whether it be with a classic event horse, whether it be with a cob, or it doesn't necessarily even need to be a cob. I last year I rode an Appaloosa, and they're quite unusual to be seen. And, so eventing is for everyone. But I suppose the other thing with the program is it's to encourage people, but it's also to just make sure that the horses are looked after correctly, because, it's really our most important thing with this sport in general is that the horses come first, always. So the care is also really important as well. And I hope that has come across in this program as well.
You're 100% right. It is horse first in this sport, most definitely.
Absolutely. I mean, we would be nothing without them. And, I think they're amazing creatures. And I think they're incredibly forgiving of us in so many ways. And so I think it's really important that we look after them as best we can. And hopefully this program encourages people to do that.
You're right. There's been many of times I've been coming down to a fence and thought, oh gosh, I need some help right now, you poor horse.
Absolutely. They're amazing. They are amazing creatures.
So what has been your favourite part of filming this series? Because I can imagine there was a lot of highlights.
Oh goodness, loads. I really enjoy presenting. It's really good fun, and the team that are behind Horse and Country are brilliant. We've got Harry Sykes, who is the main kind of director and main cameraman, and Jay was filming as well. And they're just such nice guys. And Harry is brilliant at what he does. And I think he's done a really good job with this program. So yeah, and the most fun I think I had was just having such a giggle with the girls, and also with Harry, because poor Harry has to kind of retake so many things with me. But anyway, but yeah, I think, oh God, what was the main highlight? Come on, Simon. Let's be specific here. I mean, it's probably riding Thor, to be honest. I really enjoyed that, and I kind of chatted along as well as I was doing it. So and I love chatting. So riding and chatting at the same time, God, that's Simon in his happy place.
A great day at the office for you then.
Yeah, definitely.
So if I was somebody sat at home with my cob and I think, maybe I might give eventing a go, maybe it is something for me, where would you say that they should start their journey?
Well, I think it's making sure, first and foremost, it's making sure that your horse is fit enough, is capable and fit enough and physically healthy. And then you can just crack on, get going, find yourself a coach, go and have a lesson, get fit and get out there. I mean, you've got to start somewhere. So just take that first step, as early as you can. But definitely, I would suggest going out and finding a coach is a really important part of it, because they can guide you and they can help you to make sure that your horse is fit enough, make sure that you're both capable enough, and that, that you're doing all the right things to look after your horse as best you can.
Because it is really a team sport, eventing. Although we're individuals out there and it's just your name and the horse's name, it is a huge team effort, and your coach is a big part of that.
Absolutely. There's always a massive team of people behind every horse that's an event. Even if you're there on your own, there's still a team behind that horse at home. So yeah, definitely have a good team around you.
So listeners, you can go and watch all of this Cobbs Can Go eventing series on Horse and Country Plus. Is it out now already, Simon? Can our listeners go and view it?
Absolutely. It is out on Horse and Country TV, H&C Plus, and you can see all the programs. You can binge watch if you want to. Hopefully you'll really enjoy it.
We love a good binge watch. Listeners, go ahead and watch that. You check it out. There's been some great pointers there from Simon and the team, and I think it's going to be a fantastic watch. Simon, thank you so much for coming on and sharing the experience.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Good to see you.